Tired of the hype about living the dream? It's time for truth. This is the place for tools, power, and real talk so you can create the life you dream and deserve. Your ultimate life. Subscribe, share, create. You have infinite power.
Hello there, and welcome to Your Ultimate Life podcast. This is a podcast dedicated to helping you create a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy by serving with your gifts, your skills, your talents, the things you love to do so you can make a difference in the world. I'm excited today to have a special guest. Star, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I've loved binging the podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm grateful that you like it. So we're going to have another great episode. One of the questions I love to explore with people, because it's a little bit unusual and it makes them think. So I ask you not to be modest in answering this question, because this isn't about modesty. This is just to tell me and listeners, but tell me how Star is intentionally adding good to the world.
That's a really good question. Okay, so this is my thing. Well, I can't say lately, but this is my purpose here, and it's really to help people to become rich. That's one thing, but to really help people to heal on the inside and be able to hear God's voice, so that they can. I don't really want to say walk in purpose, but more so they can be fulfilled. What I have learned just going through life altogether is there are a lot of people who do not know how to hear God speak for themselves. And I guess we can talk specifically about Christians. And so because of that, they find themselves in a space where they're not making decisions, and they're just letting life happen to them as opposed to being active. And then when it comes to the wealth part, there's what I have noticed. There is this, Lord, send the wealth. Yes, you're going to do the wealth transfer, but then there's no action steps to actually make that happen. And so I used to be one of those people, by the way. But then God started to show me, like, there are actually steps that you need to take in order for this to happen. And now I get to train people on how to do that.
What is creating? I love that, because you're right. I call people affectionately broke healers, people that want to go run around, do spiritual work, and somehow believe that it's either wrong or have an aversion to making money, when truly what it is they're afraid of rejection and they don't like the idea of selling. And
Yep.
If you compare it to used car salesmen and pushy tactics, then I understand, but that's not it. Tell me what the connection is between hearing God's voice and wealth.
Okay, I'm going to take you on a journey.
Please tell me what the connection is, because there is one.
Yeah.
And it's powerful and it's important, but I want you to just describe for us, what's the connection between hearing God's voice and wealth?
Absolutely. So I'm a TV producer. And I worked in the television industry for over a decade. And I remember working at this major TV company, and there I was overworked, I was underpaid, and I felt unseen. And I remember getting to a point where I just felt like, I guess this is just it. It's not going to get any better. I'm not going to be able to do what it is that I want to do. And I remember being so frustrated that I went home to have a pity party. But God actually said to me, don't have a pity party, have a praise party. That was one of my first times really acknowledging that God was speaking to me. It was the way that he said it. He said it through music. The whole day I was feeling frustrated. I'm going to go home and have a pity party. This is what I'm telling myself. But then there was this gospel song playing in my head, and I didn't remember the words. I didn't remember what song it was. It was just a tune. It was like, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. And when I left the building, I put the music in my ear so I could just hear the song. And the lyrics were, sing until the Lord comes down. That's what it was saying. So I knew I was getting direction. And in that moment, I went home, I wrote a note, put it on my door, and I said, don't come in unless you're going to praise with me. Now, this is the first time I've ever done this. Like, I've been a Christian for a long time, but I've never praised God until his spirit came down. I didn't even know what that looked like. I didn't know what to expect. But there I was in my room, and I'm playing this music and I'm praising God and I'm singing and I'm dancing. I mean, like, head moving, I'm going in. And I remember just this light push. And I fall a little back and I think to myself, I think I'm supposed to fall now. And I drop to the ground, and wind from nowhere encircles me. And when I say nowhere, I mean the window was closed. This was January of 2020, so it was cold, but the window was closed. And then the nearest window would be the kitchen, which was kind of far away. So where did this wind come from? But it encircled my body. And I can hear this faint voice that said, quit your job. And I thought to myself, ain't nobody quitting a job, God. Who's doing that? But then he said to me, why are you so afraid? And that's what it was. I was afraid to quit my job because of years of unemployment that I had. Where was I going to get money from? Right. And I said to God, I'm going to listen to you, but you're going to have to remind me in the morning because I will act like this was a dream. And I know there's a lot of us out there where we have encounters with God and then we're like, that didn't really happen. So the next day he did remind me. He sent me, I think I was just, you know how our phones be listening to us. So I was on YouTube and a Bishop T.D. Jakes sermon just popped up talking about walking by faith and listening to God, right? And so I walked into the office, I quit my job that day. And they were just like, you're not going to give us 2 weeks? And I look at God and I'm like, you didn't tell me to give them 2 weeks. Like, what do you, right? And so I ended up giving them 2 weeks, right? I share that story because that was the very first time that I really encountered God and heard him speak to me. And he told me to do the most scariest thing of my life. And as I was approaching these 2 weeks, right? I'm there for the 2 weeks. We're getting ready to end. I'm getting ready to leave. The last day, my supervisor offers me a 13.5K increase. And I'm looking at God like, oh, you did this on purpose. Like, you told me to give my 2 weeks so that now I can be able to get this raise. You a G. And God said to me, or you can take the increase, or you can choose to break the spirit of fear in your family. And I thought to myself, what does that mean? But I ended up choosing to break the spirit of fear in my family, and then ended up quitting. And for 8 months, I spent that time at God's feet, just listening to him speak, learning how to prophesy, learning how to have encounters with him. And then the direction started. So after 8 months of also healing, because I was also healing, then the direction started. God says to me, start creating content full time. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that has to do with trying to get a job. It's been 8 months now and my money's running low. But I start creating content full time. My following skyrockets, but I'm not making money. And so I say to God, okay, well, I'm getting all these followers, but I'm not making any money. And then God says this next thing, well, that's because you have nothing to offer. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, I take 1 month off of social media and I start my business. Now, when I'm starting my business, I have this money block and a poverty mindset I didn't realize was there. I was afraid to sell. I was afraid of rejection, but these were the things that God was healing me from. And just following him on this journey, I started to learn about wealth. And it was blowing my mind because I grew up in the church. And a lot of the churches that I have been to, the pastors would preach the people into poverty. And there will be this messaging of just tithe and God will take care of you. That's it. So that was the mindset that I had. But God was showing me that there's more to it than that. If you're going to follow my direction, if you're going to follow my lead, there are certain privileges that you have as a child of my kingdom that you're not even accessing because of fear, because of a lack of knowledge, because of ignorance. And because you are also limiting me and blocking and boxing me in. So the deeper I went with God, the more I started to understand wealth. And I started to understand how to acquire it. I started to understand the systems to build in order to generate it and pass it down. So when we talk about these wealth generation, like I want to generate wealth. I want to be able to do that for my family, for my friends. I think for me, I used to think it was, God's just going to send money and then we just be able to pass it down. It wasn't until I started my business that I started to understand there's a system that needs to be built. The people need to be trained so that they know how to take care of this wealth generation. And so if I didn't quit my job, listen to God, I wouldn't have understood, oh my goodness, wealth is not just spiritual, but it's also physical. But this is something that God wants us to have. So that was my answer to how do they tie together, my spirituality and wealth.
So you said a bunch of really interesting things that might surprise some people, and that is that our Creator intends for us to experience joy, intends for us to be abundant, not just in spiritual things. And there really isn't any separation between the spiritual and the temporal unless we invent it. And
Yes.
so as we create that separation, we create the idea that in order to be spiritual, I got to be broke. And, when the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil, we just hear money is the root of all evil, and it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Money is just a tool. So when you decided, I love that, go create some content. Okay, now you have to have something to offer. People can't pay you. Oh, wow. Yeah, I never thought of that. Okay. Because it's kind of like church. You go to church and you just put money in the plate or whatever. So we don't do that. We have to have something to offer. So what business were you guided to start with your followers and with the content you'd been creating? And I'm assuming maybe they're related. Maybe they weren't. I don't know. But what business were you guided to start?
First of all, I love the way you phrase the question because guided is the right thing. Because for me, I never wanted to start a business. I told God, I said, I don't want to hustle. I don't want to start a business. I was okay working a 9 to 5. That's a whole other story that God had to break me out of that system too. But I was guided to start a marketing agency and a marketing coaching program. And that was also resistance. There's a lot of resistance on my end because, as I said, I'm a TV producer. I know how to create amazing videos, TV shows, films. I can build audiences that will just love your content, love your movies, love your shows. And here I was, okay, I'm going to start teaching people how they can create these videos. But I was starting to teeter totter on marketing. And I remember trying to pull back because I'm like, no, I can't teach people marketing. I don't know anything about this thing. But the more I kept walking, the more I became confident. Oh, actually, this is kind of already ingrained in me. And there's a couple of skills that I need to learn. And then I can teach that to my clients too. So I ended up teaching, now I teach 6 and 7 figure business owners how to use video marketing in order to grow their audience largely or smallly, however you want to do it, but then convert your followers into customers. And so walking in this helped me to help people how to create wealth and how to become rich in their business.
So it's you had a mindset of poverty and fear. You were then guided to create content and then guided to show others not only how to create content, but how to use it well to market whatever their products and services are. And so your product and service became, I am an expert at learning to build audiences and create good content. You, my clients, can use that skill to create audiences and clients of your own. What do you think is in your heart that makes you desire to serve? Because the original question is, how do you add good to the world? What do you think is in your heart that makes you want to serve God's other children besides you or me in that particular way? What's going on in you that says, this is how I'm going to show up?
Okay. So I remember I was in an emotionally abusive relationship for about 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when I finally got out of that relationship, I felt like I couldn't look men in the eyes. I felt like a bad person. I felt like I couldn't do any good, and I didn't know who I was. And I remember praying and asking God to heal me and show me my purpose. And something God kept saying to me during that process, go set the captives free. At the time, I had no idea what that meant. But as I kept walking with God, I started to see, like, oh, wait a second. One, why are they enslaved? Two, who are these people? Three, how do they get free? And I started to see just the systems that we have in this world, whether it's an education system, the corporate system, is creating an enslavement. I tried to make it pretty, but it's not pretty. And people are working their lives away. Some are dying broke. I've seen poverty claim more souls or lives than cancer, than COVID. And so there's a fire in me that's like, I've declared war on poverty. Like, we're not going to let this keep happening. And not only just in this world, especially in the church, because this poverty mindset that I had not only ran deep in my family, but it was also in the church. And even today, when I meet Christian business owners, there is this lowly spirit or this false humility. That's a better way of saying it. That if I don't charge too much, then I'm a good person. I should just give everything away because God's going to take care of me anyway. And these mindsets are keeping people enslaved. Some of them can barely pay their bills. Some of them can barely live the life that they want. If Jesus said, I came so that you may live life to the full. And I don't think people truly know what that means. We don't even ask God, what does that mean that I should live life to the full? Like he has created us to be kings, both men and women. We're created to be kings. That's who he has called us to be. And he has given us a kingdom that we need to be kings of. And if we're not the kings of these kingdoms, we're not the ones who are leading, that means someone else is leading, or something else, could be a spirit that is leading it. But if we're not awake and if we're not free, we're not going to step into that power. And so that's what drives me when I see people who are depressed, stressed, sad. They feel distracted and disconnected from God, from their power, from their wealth. They feel disconnected from all of that. And now something inside of me says that person needs to be set free. They'll set the captive free.
So your three questions were, why are they enslaved? And I think you were talking that we have a systemic enslavement in the context of not just the church or religious context, but also, starting from, we're taught practically from the cradle that we're not good enough.
Yep.
Grades and, how you're raised and jobs and everything, it's focused on pushing us away from free expression and from being ourselves, and judged and not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. And then there's the extra overlay in the religious context, because they teach, humility and sacrifice, which are true principles. And that has been stretched to mean you have to die broke and run around, sad and unhappy and barely getting by, when what really that does is just make you unable to be of much service in the kingdom. That's all that really does, is push you in a place where you can't do much except just get by. And maybe God does take care of people, but if you're not busy working with them, then it's in a just get by way, because that's all we're asking, really. So that was the first thing. And you said, who are these people? And I guess we talked about them. And then the third question, or the third thing you said, is, how do I break them free? So tell me what breaking them free means, and what do you do? Teach me. I'm that. So teach me what would be required to break free, and do what?
Oh, that's such a good question. There's many things, but one thing that God has given me is my voice. So he's told me to speak to their mindset, right? So a lot of them are in darkness or in chains. And when I start speaking, there becomes a stirring in their heart. Now, for me speaking, God has given me this anointing. It's called the fire anointing. I still remember when he gave it to me. When I speak, it really is Holy Ghost that's speaking through me. And so now he starts calling his people. They don't know why they're drawn to me. They don't even know why they're falling in love with me in that moment. I've had people tell me, I just met you and I love you. And I'm like, it's not me, it's Holy Spirit. But then I start to speak to the situation that they're in. And then I start to let them know, but there's another way. There's always another way with God. See, they don't realize that the way that they're walking right now was never intended for them. It probably was passed down to them. It probably was handed to them. They just grew up in it. And now I let them know, but actually there's another way. And they start craving, because their soul was already stirring. They start craving, what is this other way? And then I show them how to hear God speak. Because I can talk to you all I want, but if you don't ever learn how to hear God speak for yourself, you won't know the direction that he sends you. And oftentimes what happens is there's this blindness, specifically in the church, where oftentimes people try to hear God speak through the pastor or the preacher, not realizing that that vessel is limited, just like we are limited. And you want to go to the unlimited source, because he's going to direct you on the path that you're going to walk, and your path won't look like everybody else's. There's this fear that I don't want to be different. I don't want to stand out. But God's like, I want you to. I want you to stand out, because you are a peculiar people to begin with. You were never called to blend in. And so when they start to hear these messages, and then they start to learn the tools on how to hear God speak, here's what they tell me. I feel free. I feel happy. I feel joy. Okay, I feel nervous, but I'm still going to do it anyway. because now they have direction. Now they start to understand their identity. Now they start to see, okay, I can see where God is calling me and leading me. And oftentimes he's calling them to go and set other people free in their own way. And they're able to use their talents and their gifts to build wealth. And now they no longer have to be enslaved to the financial system. We get to live above this financial system or any system that the world has created and continue to set people free. The hardest part is when people are coming out of the darkness, because for so long you had these beliefs and they were limiting you and they are safe. But now you're going into a new belief system and you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know where it's going to take you. These are all the things that I went through too. So I share a lot of my experiences.
Of course they are. And that's really important, because one of the most important things for any messenger or person that has a message is that they're a product of the product. And so the most power, at least in my experience, comes from your or my or your clients or mine ability to speak truth that they know is truth because they have walked this path and had these experiences deeply and powerfully, and they are a product of those experiences. Mm-hmm. So I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh, I was actually getting ready to wrap up. So
okay, good. So then my next question is, how do you teach me to hear intuition, inspiration, or the voice? How do you teach someone to do that?
That is such a great question. Man, I haven't done this in a while. Let me roll up my sleeves. No, I do it all the time. Okay. So my first question to you is, how does God speak?
Well, you're asking somebody that doesn't leave his morning routine every day until I've heard the voice of God. So okay. I had to learn this the same way that anyone has to. We all get those nudges of intuition, and we mostly ignore them or discount them until we learn to understand what they are and to develop the courage to hear them. Mm-hmm. So prayer and meditation are the practices that I use. Yeah. And I have documents of creation that I use that are mighty and powerful and make the walls light on fire. So that's how I hear the voice, yeah. And it's a constant companion. But what I want to know is how you teach someone, and if that's what you're doing, then
that's exactly what I'm doing.
Okay, yep. Good. That's how I yep. hear the voice.
Perfect. So God speaks in many ways. So one of the ways that you hear him is through internal intuition. But he also speaks through visions. Mm-hmm. He speaks through dreams. He mm-hmm. speaks through music. He speaks mm-hmm. through art. He speaks through other people. He speaks through situations. And so my next question is, have you ever heard God speak to you in any of these ways?
All of them.
All of them, exactly.
One of my sentences in my own personal document is that I seek coaching and inspiration from each person in my path, regardless of their standing, stature, or status, and from everything I read. And so I actively look at every book that I read, every person I talk to, what is there to learn here? What is going on? And so all of the above.
Absolutely. And what happens is when I point that out to them, the confidence come. Oh my goodness, he's been talking to me all this time through these different ways. And sometimes we just don't recognize how he speaks. So now that we know all the different ways that he speaks, the next thing I would ask is, okay, I want you to ask God a question now and let him give you the answer. Now, in that moment, they may start feeling afraid, right? Mm-hmm. But when it comes to listening for God's voice, it takes faith. So in that moment, now they're now exercising this muscle of faith. All right, she's telling me to do it. I'm gonna try it, right? And so I want you to, well, you specialize in this. If we had someone who didn't know how to hear God speak, but I want you to ask God a question and see mm-hmm. what he the answer to. And you can ask the question out loud so I can hear it too. Sometimes he gives me the answer, sometimes he won't. It's okay.
Good. So the question, my commitment this year, my year started October 14th, which as we record this is a couple of months ago, is to reach 300 million people. And reaching them means with the message of their own divinity and capability, and with the tools and frameworks to do something with that knowledge, and the encouragement and energy to take action and create results, to add good to the world with their gifts and skills and talents. So the question that I would ask God at this moment is, what else What more do I need to do now so that that 300 million becomes a reality? Because I declared that goal without having a clue about, well, not having a clue, because I had goals in years past, but not knowing how I could reach that number. So I always ask this, and the question would be, what else do I need to do to make that happen?
Awesome. And so as you're listening right now, there are certain things that are going to happen. You may start having pictures in your head, which are your visions. Some people don't know what visions are, so I always like to explain that to them. You may feel a stirring in your heart, or you may feel something like a stirring in your belly. It could be some type of fire, right? I want you to pay attention to what your body is doing. But also, you may start hearing birds chirping outside. Wind just may blow out of nowhere. When you're present in this moment and God is speaking, He's going to use any of those avenues, and we want to be prepared for what it is that He does, right? Okay, so go ahead, listen, and tell me what He's saying.
I already was having feelings as you were describing that. The feelings were feelings of excitement. They were feelings of certainty, like, I'm going to reach this, and I say that without any hesitation. And there weren't new ideas about what to do, but it was like, do what's in front of you, keep going, and have fun. Like, keep moving. And the excitement that I felt was of the certainty that I felt, a renewal of the certainty I felt this morning, because in my daily creation process, I feel it every day. And so this was an opportunity for me to renew and feel an excitement and renewed commitment around that auspicious goal, which is scary as heck.
I love it. And you know, it's so powerful. Like as you were getting the excitement, I was getting visions. And so one vision I saw was of this very firm ground that you were walking on. And so you talked about having this excitement and just this knowing. That's that belief. You're standing firmly on that ground that this is where I'm on the path and this is the goal that God has called me to. But here's the other vision I had of you speaking to the seed that are in people. And those seeds are going to give birth to seeds. And so I don't know how you're measuring how you're talking to people, but this is a generational goal that God is giving you. So some of the people that you're going to reach have not been born yet, but you're speaking to the seed. And so as you speak to the person who's a seed like me, when my children are born, they will be reached. And this is
Mm-hmm.
actually what God did with Abraham and Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
And God said to Abraham, you will be the father of many nations, of many sons, right? And he had Isaac. Well, he also had Ishmael. And then that was it. I mean, he saw his grandchildren, all those things, right? But today, he's the father of many nations. Like there are so many of us, right? And so this 300, you said 300 million?
Mm-hmm.
I just saw God expanding it, right? Because of the
Well,
seeds.
that's this year. So
Yeah,
October
I know.
14th to October 14th.
I
And
know.
next year's goal, we'll worry about that in October. But yeah, it is. And I love that because as I've contemplated the question, how do I measure? How will I know that? And I've done what I could in the past years,
Mhm.
audience reach and all that kind of stuff. But to me, the most important thing is, I call it the ripple effect, and you're calling it the generational effect. And I love that because the seeds may not only be children, they're the seeds of ideas and the seeds of things that haven't been hatched yet in people's heads and in their hearts about what they can do with what we wake up in them with the message, the method and the motivation.
Yeah. Ooh, so powerful. And this is what God does. And
Mhm.
so I actually want to answer this question that no one asked at all. But there are some people who are going to listen to this and say, okay, well, what if the wind did blow? And what if I did hear a bird chirping? Like, what do I do with that? And so in those moments, because what God is doing is he's giving you a symbol. We serve a God who gives us many symbols. Like if you study dream interpretation, the dreams that we have is full of symbols. Joseph had dreams, Daniel had dreams, they're full of symbols. So a bird chirping is a symbol. And what I recommend is looking up birds in the Bible. Because as you look them up, there's a scripture that's going to jump out at you, and you'll know it when it jumps out at you because your heart may leap when you see it, or your face may go, oh my God, there's a knowing, like I know this is it. From that scripture, that's God speaking to you. That's your next step. Right. And so these are just this different ways that I train people on how to hear God speak so that they can get their direction. And as they continue to exercise the muscle, they become more confident because now instead of them going to prophets or psychics or whatever, just to hear God, they can do it themselves.
One of the interesting things that popped in my mind as you gave that fabulous description is to encourage, like when I teach meditation, which is one of the things I help people learn to do, it isn't a certain style, stand on your head in a corner or spin around 3 times. It's 3 simple principles. Number 1, slow down enough to be where you are. And when you are, turn off everything else in your mind. 2, notice or see what comes to you in that silence. Notice what you see in that silence and stillness. And the 3rd one is trust that what comes to you is truth. And that's what you're describing here as you hear those things and see those things and then go look it up here and look it up there. You can have these ideas on one of the key elements for me, for you, for everybody listening, is trust that what you get is truth. Trust it and take the action. That's why the 3 steps. Do what's in front of you, keep going, and have fun.
I love that. Have fun. I think oftentimes we forget to do that part.
We forget that all the time because we're busy gagging on, well, I hope it's the right thing. And then when we do it, it doesn't do exactly what we wanted. Like, gee, I thought a box of gold bars was going to be delivered this afternoon by Amazon, and it isn't. I wonder if it's the wrong thing. I wonder if I'm full of crap, and we wander down that negative road because it didn't happen in the manner, the size, and the time that we thought. And I gave a name to that. I call it the MST disease, manner, size, and time. And we don't know the game. So just keep going. Trust and keep going. So yeah, I love that.
So powerful. I'm sitting here soaking up your wisdom.
So I want to ask you another question. How do people find out? So you now run a marketing, education, and training coaching agency to help me not, one of the differences I see is not just, okay, here's what's working in marketing, here's the languaging, here's how to attach to people's emotions and enter the conversations going on in their head and all that marketing mumbo jumbo, but you're doing something completely as an adder or an elevator, an exponential growth thing, which is trust some intuition, lean on and access the source of all wisdom, trust that so that what you have to say will be amplified, have the stamp of truth, which is what moves people's hearts. And so you teach people not only marketing through video and the other skills that you've developed, but it's also to trust. Learn to cultivate and then trust that direction and intuition.
Yeah, and you know what? I really love that you put it that way because my spirituality, it blends through everything. Like, not only are we teaching you these marketing skills, but we're using biblical principles to teach you how to do it. Like, I use the life of Jesus on how he was able to grow his following. Like, he had one mission, which was to come and save the world, right? And he was going to go to the cross, but he had a method of doing that. And his method was a 2-step method, which was to grow his following and then convert his followers into believers. Now, when we're on social media, that is our same method. It is to grow our following and convert our followers into buyers. But what are buyers? Buyers are believers who believe that you can help them get their transformation. So as I teach them these biblical principles and they start to see, oh my goodness, Jesus did care about his following. He did grow his following. Okay, and then he did convert them. He did give call to actions. It starts to resonate with them. One last thing that we also do, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with spiritual gifts. And this is a lot of my clients are Christian, but not all of them are, and that's okay. But for the ones who are Christian, we show them how to activate their spiritual gifts when they are selling and doing marketing. And so one in particular is the gift of discerning spirits. And that's really being able to, how do I want to say this, be able to connect with your lead or your prospect emotionally. Like, what are they going through emotionally so that you can be able to speak to that and let them know that you're the person to help them, right? And then prophecy, being able to hear God speak so that he can speak through you so that they can, actually work with you. And so when I show up in that way, one, people are able to breathe because they recognize, oh, these aren't just regular old tactics. Like, I'm showing you biblical principles, and biblical principles do not discriminate. They don't care if you're Christian or not, right? They're going to work for you. So if you're seeing people like Jesus and King Solomon and you're learning their tools and their skills, then for you, it's going to make your business thrive. And that's what happened for me. It made my business thrive. It makes a lot of my clients' business thrive when they learn these biblical principles. So the spirituality, of course, learning how to hear God speak, but then also in your business, doing that as well.
You know, I have a client right now, and he says his expression of that is your business should be the fullest expression of your authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that idea and that description, because that means connected to our purpose and meaning, the fact that we're divine beings. And when we've explored our skills and our gifts and our connection to the divine, that's the place where we can fully be ourselves, add good to the world, and make the most impact and the most money, because it's the most valuable thing that we have.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you're walking in your truth, which is oftentimes that's what people are searching for. Like, what's my truth? What's my purpose? What's my identity? How do I feel fulfilled? Right. And so when you're doing all of these things, then yeah, you can start feeling fulfilled because you're actually walking in your purpose. And the most important thing is you won't really be comparing yourself to someone else because their path is their path and your path is your path. And this abundance mindset starts to be developed. And this is one of my prayers for this year and going into next year. I ask God to show me abundance from his perspective, right? I want to see it from, I've seen lack and scarcity, but I now want to see abundance from his perspective, right? And so when we start to really adopt that mindset of abundance, we don't have to worry about competition in the sense that, oh my goodness, they're going to get all of the clients, they're going to get all of the people. No, we recognize that people are attached to our voice. We're called to help them. As long as we show up and we speak, we will call them to us. So really just standing in who you are and being confident.
That's exactly right. There's absolute abundance. So I want to ask now, and there is no competition because you're you and you're unique, and that's not a marketing gimmick. It's actually a fact. It is a spiritual and physical fact. Where can people find to follow you, to follow your stuff, to find out what you offer, to check out your marketing offerings, to see what you do and what you might have for them?
Absolutely. So I have a 5-day challenge. It's called Convert Content to Cash. And you can actually just go to the website, which is content2cashchallenge.com. And right there, we show you how to create content that sells in 5 days or less. Like that's our goal. The reason why we do it so quickly is because one, when you're showing up and you're actually taking action, you get to see results right away. Right. So it's a 5-day challenge. We just walk you through. Here's how you create the content. Here's what you say in order to connect deeply with your audience. Here's what you say in order to sell without sounding salesy, because I know there's a lot of people who feel icky when it comes to selling. But then also, here's how Jesus did it. So we do teach.
I love that you said that, because Jesus was the greatest marketer that ever lived. So content to cash challenge is good. Content to cashchallenge.com. Go there and check it out. I love what you're teaching, and it is absolutely in line with every spiritual principle, and it will allow you, as you follow these principles, to grow your influence and income because you're trying to add good to the world. So that is fabulous. Is that the best place to find out about you?
Yes. And then you can also go to my Instagram, which is @bookofstar_. And then every other social media platform @bookofstar.
@bookofstar. I love that. What a cool thing. So, final question. What didn't I ask you about that I should have?
That is a really good question. My mind automatically goes to call to actions, but we didn't talk a lot about marketing in that sense. But
I don't
actually,
care. You want to talk about call to actions? Go ahead.
I do want to talk about call to actions because I want to give an example of Jesus giving call to action. So, what I've recognized with business owners when they're on social media or just period, when they are selling, oftentimes they don't give a call to action because they feel icky. They don't know how to do it. They don't know that they should do it. But if we're looking at Jesus's life, if we go to Luke 5, when he meets his disciples for the first time, there's a couple of things that he did, right? Like this is where the disciples, they were fishing all night. They couldn't catch any fish. And so Jesus goes to them and he says to them, cast your net again. And so they're skeptical, but they do it. And then they catch all this fish. And then Jesus says to them, Follow me, for I will make you fishers of men. So not only did Jesus see a need, they hadn't caught fish all night, give them the solution, cast your net again, help them get results really quickly. They caught a lot of fish. After he showed them that he was the truth and he can help them get results, the next step was the call to action. Follow me, for I will make you fishers of men. And so if we're feeling like, oh my goodness, I feel icky and I don't want to give these call to actions, it's super important to, because you want to give them the next step after you've already served them. And so that's just a taste of the biblical principles that we teach.
It is, and anybody that thinks that selling is icky has to understand a fundamental truth. If you don't, selling is the best way to serve, because people ignore free stuff because the world is buried in it.
Yes.
With AI and the internet, everything is free. So if you have something valuable and you don't offer it for sale, you're acting in opposite of the best interest of the person that you're talking to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, I almost added one more thing, but I wasn't sure if you were going to ask another question.
No, go ahead.
And what we don't understand, like, information is cheap, right? Like, you can get that anywhere that you want, but it's going to cost you with the transformation. And so when Jesus said, follow me, for I will make you fishers of men, there was a cost that was attached to it. That wasn't a free ride that they just went. They may not have paid physical money, but there was a cost that was attached to it. And every single one of them were transformed and went on to do something impactful and powerful. So we are doing our clients or our leads or our prospects a disservice when we don't offer them the next step. We're pretty much telling them, hey, you're good the way you are. But that transformation is going to cost you. And we were all called here, again, like for me, set the captives free. You can't get free if you are so holding on to your money, telling yourself, I'm never going to make money, or I'm never going to get this money again. There has to be some type of release, right? So I just love it.
That's fine. And what I say to clients, people ask me all the time, they ask me what I charge, and I tell them X amount, and it's a big number. And they say, why do you charge that? And the answer is, I don't need your money. And I actually don't. I don't need your money. What I need is your attention. And when you've put that much money on the line, then I have your attention. Exactly. Now we can get some work done. And when you talk about Jesus, no, he didn't charge them any money, but it cost them their lives.
Yes, it did.
So they put everything on the line. All right. So this is fabulous. I'm really grateful. Do you have a final point you'd like to make as we get done here?
Yeah. You said something which you were like, what I'm teaching helps people to grow their influence and their income. But influence and income equals impact. And oftentimes that's what my clients want. They want to be able to make an impact and know that they're being fruitful and they're adding to the kingdom. But you can't make an impact without the first two. So no matter what you're doing, make sure you're growing your influence and your income so that you can make impact.
The level of impact you can have is almost always, and I'll say almost because Jesus made his impact without a lot of income, but almost always directly related to the amount of money you have, because reaching many people and having a large audience and creating that stuff requires money. It just does. Yeah. And so that's a true principle. Thank you for being with us today and sharing all this very, very good content and teaching with us today. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So I want to encourage you guys to listen to this again. There's a lot of stuff in here that's you've heard me talk about a lot, but the way that she talked about the difference in voices was different. And follow your heart, train your mind and faith to listen and respond to your intuition so that you can move forward and create your ultimate life.
Never hold back and you'll never ask why. Open your heart and this time around.
Right here, right now. Your opportunity for massive growth is right in front of you. Every episode gives you practical tips and practices that will change everything. If you want to know more, go to kellenflukigermedia.com. If you want more free tools, go here, yourultimatelife.ca. Subscribe, share.
Stand with your heart in the sky and your feet on the ground.